One of the points I wanted to bring up, I just heard this morning on the NE Casey Foundation report, young black and young Latino kids have 9 times the likelihood of living in concentrated poverty as white people. We can't just say that it's just class. There's a very heavy, aggressive overlay of race top of class. The big thing that's happening in Youngstown is those defunded inner city schools are increasingly moving into charter schools where there's even less resources and even less quality. And I know we're up against it here in the city of Youngstown, but we're going to keep being the poster child of oppression based on race and poverty if we don't get some kind of handle on that. So I just want some clarity in that analysis. I don't know if you have a comment about it or not, but it's just a very nasty, hard reminder that concentrated poverty in Youngstown means young black kids and young Latino kids are 9 times more likely to be surrounded by poverty. It's partly because of equal opportunity in housing has let upper middle income blacks and whites move out. And we've got now a morass of people with incredibly bad role models. And it's a very depressing, hard thing that we have to deal with, and we have to acknowledge it. We can't pretend it's just class. It's a very heavy racial overlay, and it's incredibly costly to young black kids.
I think that there's nothing I disagree with Jim's analysis. But if you look at sort of statistical information between blacks and whites, incomes are going like this. But within the black community, where the inequality is growing. Between men and women, it's getting closer, but within gender, it's getting wider. Okay, so it's not simply a question of poverty itself and race itself. They're both sides of oppression. And they have to find a way to have that discussion that acknowledges that. And as we move forward, we certainly can recognize that, what's happened in terms of race. But as Stoughton was saying, and the new Murray book suggests, that a lot of those situations that we largely saw in terms of poverty, in terms of the African American community, are very much the same that are in the white community, the poor white community, Appalachian, and other places like that. So my point of this, I don't want to privilege any one of those separate identities. And I think it became a problem, I think, from the 1980s up until 2000, where we had this sort of the unintended consequences of multiculturalism in the academic circle. It really, you privilege one particular identity for your own purpose.
Mr. Lynn?
It's easy to get ourselves discouraged, and I think it's important to keep our eye on the prize of how can we create interracial cooperation between these different groups. And something that struck me very much in recent years is that I think there are 2 situations in American life where in the last several decades there has been some real interracial cooperation. There's a fella named Richard Moser who's written a book about combat soldiers in Vietnam. And according to him, I've seen other things other places, but according to Mr. Moser, blacks and whites in Vietnam tended to live separately. Why? Because they had different tastes in music, maybe shared a few drugs, but other things people felt more comfortable with songs that other people in the tent knew as well, and so forth. But that when it came to telling the lieutenant if he wanted to patrol at night, he could do it by himself, the blacks and whites, at least according to this one scholar, experienced considerable solidarity. I wasn't there, I can't speak to it personally, but if it's true, that's interesting. What I can speak to personally is the relation of blacks and whites in another oppressive situation, to wit, maximum security prisons, of which we have Ohio's prime example on Youngstown Hubbard Road, or Route 616. 5 men were sentenced to death at the end of the Lucasville prison uprising in 1993. They included 2 members of the Aryan Brotherhood, 1 Muslim imam, Sunni Muslim imam, 1 former Sunni Muslim imam, and a 5th man who was African American and independent of religious or political groups. And I'm here to tell you that those 5 men have stuck together for almost 20 years. And when I say stuck together, I mean any one of them could have walked at least part way out of the joint had he been willing to become a snitch on the others. And in fact, when my wife and I represented the whole class of prisoners at the Ohio State Penitentiary, there were 2 of them, Keith Lamar, an African American, Jason Robb, a white member of the Aryan Brotherhood, who were the class representatives in the courtroom and good friends. So it's curious, isn't it? Here are 2 situations of oppression. The jungle in Vietnam, the asphalt, concrete, steel jungle of the prison that Mayor Ungaro called Youngstown's home run, the Supermax. And it seems to me, just to state a problem, but hopefully to do it in a somewhat positive way, my question is, how can we take this, which blacks and whites do experience in situations of common oppression? They're able to say, oh, this color business is just less important than whether I'm going to go on patrol and get shot up tonight. This color business is just less important than whether I can have a visit with a slot in the what do you call it, the plastic shield between visitors and inmates, whether I can have a visit with a slot so that I can touch my grandchild. How can we create on the street the kind of interracial solidarity which I think the evidence suggests people do experience, even in these racist United States, when they share common oppression?